Hello there! The time has come, indeed you might well say the time has long gone past, for me to do some DIY in the van. And there are two projects, fairly small, that I want to tackle today. One is the bed legs. I think it was about 6 months ago I first started talking about redoing the legs on the bed. So actually, if I do get that done today, that's a pretty good timescale for me, 6 months for a bit of DIY. The second thing, however, is this, which you might recognise, if I hold it like that, as being the end of my tap. I went out in the van a couple of weeks back and staying it just for one night for a work thing. I was doing some filming, so it wasn't a social trip. And when I turned the tap on, this just popped off, which was a great surprise to me on two counts. Firstly, just that it should pop off at all. But secondly, I always thought the whole top part of the tap was one single piece of moulding, but it turns out it's made in two. And initially I thought, well, I'll just pop it back on. But you know what? It doesn't just pop back on, because it just pops back off again. And it looks mad when you actually look at the other side of it. But it turns out it's just crap. You can see on the end there that it looks as though it's got some kind of screw thread on it. So you'd think that this bit would just screw onto it. But oh no, look in that. It looks like it's got a bit of a thread, but it isn't. It's nothing. It just pushes on and pushes off. And there is just a rubber O-ring there, which seems to be a pressure fit for that. So in theory, if you push it on hard enough, it'll stay on, but it doesn't. It just pops straight back off. So it's absolutely rubbish. And what I'm going to have to do is try and glue it back on. That bit you think you can see coming away in there is just a little bit of the paint. There's some sort of painted surface in there. Anyway, look, if I push it really hard with two hands, I say really hard, it's not that hard, but holding it there and then just, there is a sort of pressure fit. But it was like that before, and the water has still popped it off. There is effectively just friction between that rubber O-ring and this, holding the whole thing on. But it's clearly going to come off again. Now, as luck would have it, I was recently re-gunging, that is a technical term, around the edge of my bath in the house with this stuff, just common garden bathroom sealant. And I figured that, well, that's sticky and it's waterproof, so I'm going to use my finger and smear a little bit of that around the end of the tap, and then push the thing on, and hopefully the additional glue of this stuff will hold it in place. So I've got my super duper squisher thing all ready, and we'll just try and get a little bit of that out, apply with the finger and push it on and hope for the best. First things first, we have to see if this is all gunged up so that it won't come out. I did put plastic over the top of the nozzle, but it looks like it has gone solid. Oh, blast. Okay. I wish they had a better way of making these things not go solid when you put the cap on. The cap seems to do nothing. Right, let's get that out. Okay, hopefully that will do the job. And I know, one shouldn't use one's screwdrivers for that kind of thing, but needs must. Actually, that could probably do with going up a bit, couldn't it? I'm putting it on the top in the thought that, oh my God. Right, that's enough, thank you very much. Release the squidger. Putting it on the top in the theory that as I push the tap on, it will then push it down and around. I think that is the solid bit. Yeah, that's the solid bit that was plugging it up. Right, let's give it a bit of a squidge. And now, let us push that on. There we go, a bit of squeeze out, that's always a good sign. A little bit messy, but nothing a bit more kitchen roll won't solve. There are no problems in life, in DIY, that can't be solved. Is that pointing down? It would be just like me to put this thing on upside down. No, that's right. No problems that can't be solved with enough application of kitchen towel and a hammer. That is my DIY approach. Okay, I'm going to assume that will gently glue for a bit. And that, my friends, is job number 1 complete, or at least complete until the point at which I can test it. It probably takes 24 hours to fully set, so I'll have to come back and check that tomorrow. The next project then is the bed legs, and if you missed my video muttering about these before, I'll just quickly recap it. Here is one half of the bed which folds up, as you can see, so that you may access the storage beneath it. And when you want to pull the bed out to make it a double, I attach these detachable legs, and the reason they are detachable is because if they were permanently fixed on, they would thump me in the eye when I try and get down to the storage below, and it would also make access to the toilet, well, impossible really. You wouldn't be able to sit on it. So instead of having these as detachable and fitting into these little holes there like that, I'm going to make hinged legs, for which I have bought a plank of wood to make some new legs. Ooh, heck. And I've also got some hinges somewhere. Where are they? Yes, I've got hinges. And there is only one small complication in that plan, in that I strengthened this edge of the bed by putting a small bit of aluminium plate on the other side, because early on with the van I discovered that if I lean with my full body weight, if I lean my knee in the middle of this, it's not a sufficiently strong piece of wood. However, if you reinforce it with a little bit of aluminium on the other side, I shall take that off. Can you see that? Yes, little aluminium strip here. Now on this one, not a problem, because the strip only goes across the middle and I can attach the legs at the far ends. But on the other one, the one here, the aluminium bit goes all the way to the end, so I'm actually going to have to take that off and trim it. So there's a little bit of woodwork trimming to be done to cut that plank down to the right size, and a little bit of metalwork trimming, and then in theory just drill a couple of holes, put the hinges on, and job's a good one. And then the hinge should, the leg should sit here and will hinge up to here whenever I pull this thing back. As you can see, I put this metal strengthening in with 1,000 screws for ultimate strength. So I now have to remove them in order to trim about this width off the metal so that the leg can, so that the hinge can go here. I mean, I suppose I could drill the hinges through that, but shall I? Maybe I should do that. No, because the wood will line up here and the hinge will be at a funny angle. Let's not do that. Here's hoping that I didn't glue this on as well, because I do have a tendency to screw and glue things thinking that would be a good idea. Oh no, we're alright. That's coming off fairly easily actually. Now, let's also not lose the screws, because that would be very typical of me. But they're coming out disturbingly easily, which suggests they may not necessarily hold when I put them back in again. I fear it's going to be a little awkward trying to drill the holes for the hinges with this wood here, because I won't be able to get the end of the drill over. That's going to be a pain. I might have to drill from the other side and hope that I drill straight and true so that where they pop out is correct. Oh, and the other thing I should have done actually is mark this up for how much I need to chop off. Now this new bit of wood is the same size, theoretically. Where's the tape measure gone? This is, I think, something like 7 centimetres. Yep, 7. So it's the same size as that. And if I put it at the end, is that going to be the right spot? Does it matter? It would be entirely typical if I do this and then open it up and find that, no, hang on, we're looking at this one, aren't we? Oh, I need to move things. Right, when this is up, it will be like that, admittedly with this bit on it. Let's put this back on before I get rid of the final screw. Right, that would be like that. There we go, let's try and move that out of the way. That leg will be here, so it will fold down there happily, he said confidently, and then it will come out It will come out and it will fold down there. Ah, ooh, I've just noticed a potential snag. Yes, it need, aha! I'm glad I did that exercise, because this corner piece here would actually obstruct the leg coming off. If I put it right at the end, it will obstruct that, so I need to bring it in by that much, so it needs to be about here. Okay, so it's 7 centimetres plus that, and then the leg will go down here. So we need to cut this out. That bit is 2 centimetres, so we need to cut that out by 2. So it'll go on actually about where I cut the... Oh, I've cut a little gap out there, haven't I? Look, there's 2. No, there's 2. Yeah, you see, I knew I was going to mess that up. 2, and then 9. Stop falling off, you bugger. Is here. So we'll mark the bit of metal at 9, and also mark the underside of the wood. That's going to be halfway through a screw, which is ugly. I might move it a fraction further just to be absolutely certain. Move it in a little bit. That'll be fine. And then at this end, all should be well. Because it opens up and the leg will just dangle there and come down there. Yeah, that'll be fine. Right, good. Come apart, you swine. Let's make sure I'm cutting the right ends. That one, because that, well, I've marked it, didn't I? I marked it in situ, so that's all right. However, that little basket thing is going to have to come off, because at the far end it will interfere with the new leg. But I don't really use that little basket thing anyway, so it'll just leave some ugly holes in the wood where I unscrew it. You may be asking, and it is a reasonable question, why am I not simply cutting the dowels off these that went into the appropriate hole on the bit of bed frame, and then just putting the hinges on these instead of making whole new legs? And the answer is, these are actually too tall. They work, but they're too tall. And the reason for that is because I put carpet in after I'd made these, which means that when these are in their retracted position, the edge of the bed is up by the carpet's thickness, which is about 1 centimetre. When you pull it out, that slight, I mean, it's a tiny gradient. Once you've pulled it out, it's not noticeable when you're lying in bed. But when you put this back in, this is up by about 1 centimetre. So I'd have to, well, I'd have to chop 1 centimetre off the bottom, which is practically the entire bottom of this section, or chop 1 centimetre off the top. But because I put a strengthening piece in, and this piece is positioned so as to avoid a magnet that holds the bed in place when you're driving, it's just all too complicated. I'm just going to make new legs. Step 1 then, I think, is measure how tall the leg actually needs to be from the carpet. Let us assume the leg is firmly down on the carpet. Up to the bottom of that is 35.5 centimetres, which for overseas viewers is 14 inches and the tiniest fraction of a bit of paint, although it depends how hard you press on the carpet. Let's call that 14 inches, or yes, 35.5. Is that 35.6? Now I'm going to have to stare really closely at it. No, I'm going with 35.5. Let's double measure, double check. There's 30, there's 35, there's 35.5. Okay, remember that I want 4 legs, 2 on each half of the bed, 1, 2, 3, 4, of 35.5 centimetres. Let's see if I can remember that between here and where I've put the chop saw. Right, what have I done with the tape measure? There it is. What did I say? You see, I knew I'd forget. 35.5. Now I've checked this end and it is as near square as I'm likely to get, probably better than I would do myself, even with the chop saw. So we need 35.5. 35.5. and a half is exactly there. Let us mark that anyway with this thing, and always overcut rather than under, because I can always take a bit off later. Right, that's the first leg. Let's hope I measured that right. Well, I've got enough here that if I haven't, it's not a massive crisis. Let's make sure we get the blade on the right side, which will be fractionally more that way. That's, no, just the tiniest fraction more that way. Come on. That's about right. Safety goggles. Safety first and all that. Right, pop that down, make sure that is square. That is square. It's moved a millimetre since I did it, you little bugger. Yes, I think that's about right. Okay, I can still see a little bit of pencil mark, so let's assume that is about right. Needs a bit of a filing down. I'll go and check that one before I do anything else. One leg, one thing. Let's put that level. Oh, 0.5 millimetre in it. That's, I mean, it's pushing down on the carpet the tiniest bit. I suppose if that's strictly speaking there. We're up by about 1 millimetre. How annoying. I can probably shave 1 millimetre off with the chop saw, can't I? Okay, it's not bad for a first try. It's just, it's ever so slightly. Yeah, you see how that comes down when I take that out? So we're still up by about, in fact I'd almost say that's up by 1 millimetre. Yes, it is. Okay, 1 millimetre off. Right then, after all of that, what I have got is one shortened bit of metal and 4 pretty much identical enough for me, new legs. So I think the first thing I'll do is just pop the bit of strengthening metal back on, and then I can start worrying about drilling the holes for the hinges, which is where things might also go wrong. As with every bit of DIY, there's always a challenge. Even drilling a hole is a challenge. All right, that is now done. One thing I haven't quite worked out yet is that there's a hinge with obviously a little bulge where you have the actual pivot point, and that is effectively going to be up against where the bed legs come in. So I might end up having to carve out a little hole, a little niche for that to slot into in the back end of the bed. I don't know yet. Now this is the top bit, so that's the right hand side because it's flipped over. So a hinge would go like that, with the hinge point bang along the line of where the two things join, and as much in the middle of the bits as I can get it. And it does need to be parallel, doesn't it? That would help. Where's my set square gone? Because it will hinge better if it's actually lined up parallel. That's assuming everything else that I've done is parallel, which is almost certainly not the case. I am going to hazard a guess that that is correct. So I need my pencil. Double check, it's in the middle of that. That's pressed up against that. That is exactly where they're going to go. That will hinge up against that. Am I absolutely certain that will hinge up against that? Am I cutting that a bit too fine? Well, if I am, I can always trim a tiny bit more off that. In fact, there was always a little bit more scope at this end anyway, so I'll move it 1 millimetre that way. Let's put that bang on the line. Yep, keep moving it as I'm trying to hold it. That's not clever, is it? Right, let's hold that in place with that finger and mark the screw holes with that finger. There we go. Right. Now, easy enough to do the screw holes for that one. I do think I'm going to have trouble doing the screw holes there because that is too big. And although I do have a 90-degree thing, I wonder if my 90-degree thing would get in there. Let's go and get the 90-degree thing and see if I can make that bend. Well, it seems as though my 90-degree thingy is just the tiniest bit too big. If I actually came down vertically, it would be about 2 millimeters out of where I want that hole to be. So I could either take it from up here at a very slight angle, which I think I'll have a go at, and the screw will have to go in at a very slight angle. And we'll try it on that one alone and see how we do. Unfortunately, I glued these on as well as screwed them, and it's wood glue and it's very, very, very good stuff. And if I try taking that off, I mean, I'd end up having to not only take the screws out, but take the multi-tool to cut that, and that would destroy the wood, and that's not going to happen. I'm just going to have to live with a slightly offset screw hole in that, I think. Let's do the easy screw holes first in the other bit. Right, let's try and get that in the middle of the hole. I think that's the middle. Is that the middle? Am I level? Oh, I tell you the other thing, I probably don't want to come through to the other side, do I? Because then that would be visible. Oh, I'm going to have to try and be artistic and only make this as long as it needs to be, which is almost the width of the wood. So let's go with that. That'll do, I think. That looks fairly central. Is that about central? I think it is. Am I level? Am I straight? Do it boldly and with confidence. Right. Let us assume we've got that on there. There's a hinge. Okay, let's screw that one on. Where's my screwdriver? And yes, people are always saying, why don't I have a power screwdriver? And it's because with things like this, I'd actually rather do it gently by hand in many cases. Especially as these screws do not look like the most top quality items of ironmongery. Have I got that the right way around? Yes, that's the bit that's going in there. Alright, well let's... the other bit's fallen over. Right, you stop falling over, that's not helpful. Is that right? Yes, it's going to hinge that way. Sudden moments of panic. Right, now in theory, that will go there once I've drilled those holes. And then that leg will hinge like that. And all will be well with the world. So let's try. No, I really don't want to do... I'm not sure it's going to be that much different, actually, doing it with the right angled attachment and doing it with that. It's very slight. Shall we have a go? Shall we just have a go? Famous last words again. Let's do it at a better angle so I can see what I'm doing. going in fairly straight, to be perfectly honest. I'm feeling better about that than I was. Although it doesn't feel like it's actually biting the wood, which is not terribly encouraging. Where's another screw? I did use quite a... Oh, I tell you why, I'm putting the wrong screw in. I'm putting one of the ones from the metal in. No, oh, you... Well, that'll have ruined the thread on the hole. If I put in the proper screws, they might actually get some purchase in the wood. One more, and then we'll do the big experiment of whether leg number 1 works. Are you on the edge of your seat? I know I am. You can see that it's gone in at a slight angle because the screw head is not entirely flush. However, that's not entirely straight either. Oh, that's weird. Obviously, I did not have the hinge on a... I tell you what I did, of course, I levelled it on this piece. I should have levelled it on that piece. Yes, that's where I've gone wrong. It doesn't really matter, I don't think. Okie dokie. Well, we know it hinges. Let's see the moment of truth. Put it in place. Okay, well, it's fine in terms of length, and it's there. And then we want to get to what's under here, where I store my clothes. I lift this up. It hinges out the way! Look, it hinges out the way! The only thing I'm slightly thinking, and it was part of the original plan and then I ditched it because I thought I wouldn't need it, is that if both the legs are hanging independently, and as I fold it down, they clearly need pulling out a little to make sure they clear the edge of the bed. So I'll end up using both hands to pull them out. Whereas if I had linked them across the bottom with a strut, which I was thinking of doing, so they'd act as one single item, then I would lower the thing with one hand and I could pull them out with the other. So it may be I still add a bottom strut between the two, but for the moment I'm a very happy bunny. Let's see if I can get the other 3 on as well as that one's gone on. I remember when I built the van, a lot of people said, why didn't you take the labels off from when you bought it? And the answer is they don't blooming come off. Look, whatever sticky they use, it looks like it's going to be easy off sticky. And then it isn't, it comes off in little bits. I mean, actually that wasn't too bad, but I tried it before and you end up with lots of little bits, and look, there's still some on there, which I've now got to pick off. It's like picking a scab. There we go, that'll do. Right, here we go again. On our own. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Get the hinge the right way round, yes, get the leg in the right place. I think I've drilled that hole a little bit off, about 1/4 millimetre too high for the screw to sit nicely in its hinge hole. There has to be a better way of lining up a drill which is inherently, when you put it into the hole where the hinge will go, where the screw for the hinge will go, that hole is much bigger than the actual screw that will go into it. But you want your drill to line up with the middle of that hole. So is there a cunning means? I hope I'm making myself clear. Is there a cunning means anyone knows of, so that when you drill, you line your drill bit up with the dead centre of the hole you're trying to drill? All right, that hinges. Let's try that one as well. That goes like that. Well, it lines up and sits all right. We open it up, the legs fold out the way, and then when we want it down, we just have to pull them out to miss the thing, and they do that. So far, so good. Hello. But what is it like when I pull it out to hold the bed up? Snag number 1 had not thought about the leg pulling out and hitting the slippers. Not a massive crisis, you know. I was not terribly fond of those baskets anyway, so I might just take that one off as well. But for the moment, let's do that. And then the bed comes out, and it's slightly what I was afraid of. You see that leg is actually bent. It needs to be fully out, otherwise it may not take the weight. So when it's out like that, you see there's a bit of wibble wobble on it. And they're always, oh, I don't know if there really was on the old. Now that's out, as long as I make sure they're fully out, regardless of rolling over in bed or anything like that, I'm not going to be... It can't go that way because the kitchen unit is in the way, and if it goes that way, it's against the hinges. It would end up ripping the hinges off. I think that's fine. And then if I want to just sit on it, halfway out, that now is sittable on like that, as long as I don't end up rocking forward on it when suddenly you... And I think I'd feel that going, wouldn't I? I'd feel that suddenly going beneath me. I am sat. I'm going to jiggle myself around. It feels pretty stable, actually. That is good. Right, that's number one. And it hinges. Let's give it the test. Pop that back round this way again. This is the side of the bed that I normally sit on, because it's here I sit when I'm doing the cooking. So this is actually the more important side. Well, it's in and it's touching the carpet. Do you know, I think actually I've chopped that millimetre off that I didn't need to, because there is a little gap underneath, fractional. But of course when it's here, it doesn't matter because the whole rest of the unit is holding the thing up. It's when you pull it out, and then that gap is so fractional. Yes, as soon as you do that, it's holding up. I think. Oh, do you know, when you sit on it hard into the carpet, it probably did another millimetre or two. But with the cushions on, when you've got it this far out, yeah, it's fractionally lifting. I needed a millimetre more on that, rather than taking that millimetre off. I should have trusted my first instinct. But I don't think it matters, because when the cushion's on that and I'm sitting on that, it won't make any odds. And then I lift it up and it comes out of the way. Ah, now I've just realised, oh no, it won't matter, will it? Because that will be... I was just thinking that was going to get in the way of the loo, but that'll be fine because it'll be out of the way. This is all going to plan, which puzzles me, frankly. Let us do the other one, the final one. Oh my word. You know, this has all gone so very straightforwardly, it makes me wonder why I didn't do it 6 months ago. Do you know, I'm still finding sawdust from when I built the van. Every now and again I open up under the bed or whatever to get something out, and there's bits of sawdust down there, and I sweep it out and I vacuum it out. And then I come back next trip, there's some more sawdust. It's peculiar. What have I done with the hinge? Oh, there it is. That is the last leg. Right, this is where it gets tremendously exciting. Is there going to be some fatal flaw in the final piece? Legs down. Is that... Oh, I think I might access the drawer. Oh, look, the legs aren't going to get in my way. I can get stuff out. I can use the loo. And then when I want to bring it down again. But the biggest... Now, what was that? No, I think that's all right. The biggest joy of all will be when I want to cook. Because like this, am I here? Yes, there we go, a little bit low, but it's a little bit too far away. And even if I perch on the edge, it feels a little bit far away. I've always wanted to go just a little bit closer while still not, you know, not tilting this up. And although I could put the bed thing on, it was always just such a palaver. So that is brilliant. Just pull it out, make sure the legs are fully out, and we're there. Wow. That is heroic. Positively heroic, I tell you. I'm counting that as job done. A little bit of tidying up. At last. I really don't know why I didn't do this a long time ago. That is superb. And what is more, you notice, that little bulge on the hinge, it's not actually causing a problem. It's a small bulge, and yes, this is, the lid is now fractionally out. But honestly, you'd not notice. I'll put the cushions back on, and you probably not notice. Now just imagine for a moment that those are painted and therefore not so glaringly obvious. I think that's fine. I don't know where I got the blue paint from, unfortunately, so I'm not sure what to do about that, but just let's assume I can get some more. And although this is sticking out very, very slightly, if I actually got some more of the blue paint and filled in those gaps and things, it would be fairly... You can always pull the cushion forward a bit and then no one would know. No one's any the wiser. Yeah, pleased with that.